Good morning, everyone. You are joining EDSI webinar today. Of course, this particular webinar, we will be covering FormIt to Revit workflow walkthrough. Some housekeeping is as people join, you will be in listening only mode. Of course, we will leave time at the end for questions, and also you can post your questions as we go through our webinar. All right, so today we have Ms. Mariah Roth. She's our BIM application specialist. She is going to be our host doing the actual demo. And you have myself, Mr. Douglas Braye Sr. I'm also an application specialist here at EDSI. EDSI, we are a Autodesk Gold partner. We've been in business over 25 years, and we are also a Bluebeam authorized partner. As you can see, we have 3 other locations, one in Charleston, West Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia, and Greenville, Pennsylvania. Our Roanoke office is our home office. I like this statement below from Kevin Meredith, the CEO. Our commitment at EDSI is to your success. Challenging transition. As technology changes, rapidly, seems like every day something is changing, whether you're seeing new TVs coming out, new apps on your phone, especially when it comes to the workflow, when it comes to software, there's always going to be something new out there and unique opportunities for you to look at as a employee and a employer. So when it comes to these challenges, the statement, as Kevin Meredith has here, organizations that embrace new technologies and find a way to bring more innovative, cost-effective solutions to their clients will be the leaders of tomorrow. And we can see how, especially young people, really embrace technology and are just really driving the force as we can see it. When looking at EDSI, itself, when it comes to what our advantages are here quarterly as a company, and specifically, talking about Mariah Roth and myself, our division, AEC division, our focus is on your success. With her, Mariah Roth experience in the architectural field, my experience is MEP, architectural and structural. We have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to best workflows, implementation of software. We can provide great instructions on how to get something done. Mariah gets a lot of phone calls. I get a lot of phone calls when it comes to troubleshooting. We get a lot of emails as well. And there are also opportunities for us to do project assistance. So even if you are working on a project and you may run into an area where you need improvement or you're trying to do something a little bit better, is there a better way? You can always contact us and we can be able to help you through those types of situations. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mariah Roth, who will be presenting now.
Good morning, everyone. So within our BIM toolset, we have both programs of FormIt and Revit, which allow for quick conceptual massing, which can in turn be used to begin a construction document model within Revit. The turnover is quick with little to no information lost. This is just a breakdown of the AEC collection moving forward. As many of you know, they have switched from suites to collections lately, and this displays everything that you now have access to within the AEC collection. The value of FormIt and Revit. There are a couple key takeaways from this workflow that we would really like to emphasize to everyone. When it comes to conceptual massing, FormIt models become Revit mass families, which support wall by face, curtain system by face, and roof by face. FormIt levels become Revit levels and support floor by face and floor plan view creation. FormIt models with materials applied import to Revit with materials intact for visualization. When it comes to conceptual modeling, groups in FormIt can be categorized to Revit to become Revit families, such as generic models, furniture, or specialty equipment. FormIt models can be imported into the Revit family editor to create RFA of any family category with materials. Revit families can also be exported to FormIt and then in the future converted back to the original Revit family. The interaction between FormIt and Revit. The import FormIt to Revit command adds FormIt models into an existing Revit project. The FormIt origin point and the Revit base point are used for reliable placement of imported FormIt objects. The group name in FormIt is remembered upon Revit import for use with Revit filters, and Revit system families can be exported to FormIt using SAT export options. The base file format of FormIt is from a 2016 platform. When importing to 2017 and 2018, you will notice a model upgrade dialog box. Depending on the file size is how long this process will take. The example you are about to see took a few minutes, but no more than 10. As you know, if you put in location information in FormIt, Revit keeps that information and reads it. Additionally, masses typically aren't visible in plans and elevations, so you will want to ensure that these are turned on. That way you can see the imported information. The levels transfer and are present, but there are not views automatically created to go with them. There are a few differences when it is converted to Revit 2017 versus 2018. 2017 will not retain material information, but 2018 will. 2017 will import sections as masses, and 2018 will only import sections if they are turned on and visible within FormIt. Okay, now let's move to the software demonstration. Excuse me. So if you joined us for our last webinar, this is the model that we have created. This is our conceptual design for the model that we will be doing. And the white boxes you see are just some periphery information for site context. When we move to Revit, automatically, I have already imported this to save us time. But to import, you would go to the Add-ins tab and then the FormIt converter. If this is not available on your machine already, we can easily provide you with a URL to download this. Under the import FormIt, you would want to import your FormIt to Revit. This will bring up a dialog box. You path to your selected file, and then you click open. As we know, it'll take a few minutes, but not very much at all. So one of the most important things when you first import is to understand whether you have set a location within your FormIt model. If you have, one of the first things that we want to do is to set our true north versus our project north. One of the easiest ways to do that is to have a level 1 plan and a site plan open concurrently. Whoa. As we see the site plan on the left-hand side, it is rotated and its orientation in the properties palette is set to true north. If we look at the level 1 plan on our right-hand side, under its properties palette, it is set to Project North. This is probably typical of most of your workflows. Now, to set Project North, a lot of times what many people would do would be to select all the geometry and rotate it. But Revit has a nifty little quick tool for us that helps us rotate Project North. As located under Manage, Project Location Panel, and then Position. We want to select Rotate Project North. This will bring up a dialog box that will give us our options that we're allowed to use. We're going to use the Align, Selected Line, or Plane. I will come into level 1, zoom into a line that I know I would like to be horizontal across the page, and click this line. Revit will sync, and it will automatically alert you of the number of items that have been rotated. Simply press OK. Now, if we zoom out and compare our level 1 on the right to our site plan on the left, we can see we have our True North versus our Project North now set. And if you want to double check even more, you can go back to FormIt. From your top-down view, you can see how the Project North arrow, the True North arrow is pointing north and our buildings are slightly rotated. Enlarging level 1 plan. As we see, Revit does rotate other annotation items, such as our elevation views. This is an easy element to correct. If we zoom into one elevation and select the building elevation, we see this circular rotate item that appears. If we click on this, it will easily snap to an orthogonal view in relation to Project North. And of course, we want to ensure that this is our north view in relation to where our project is now sitting. So I'm going to do these for all of the views and kind of place them a little bit closer to my building. Now we have our Project North and our orthogonal elevation set, and we're ready to continue working. One of the other items I mentioned was levels. As we see in our project browser, we have our level 1 in our site. But if we go to our north elevation, we see that we have our level lines created. And as we know, the black represents that there is not a view to go with them. So if we go up to View, Plan Views, and Floor Plan, we can now create the other views in relation to our levels that were already created. And as you see in level 1, we are able to see the mass import. On level 2, not so much. So as I told you all, you need to make sure your mass is turned on, and it wasn't turned on in mine. And now we're able to see the import. All right, moving forward, using your FormIt model to create your Revit geometry. Currently, all of what you are seeing on your screen is the FormIt import. There is nothing in here that is Revit geometry yet. I find it easiest personally to use either a shaded, consistent colors or realistic type of view to be able to place your walls and other items. To place your Revit walls based on the FormIt model, there are a few ways you can go about this. You can go under Massing and Site, and then select Wall on the model by face. It will automatically bring up the wall command with the picked faces option already selected for you. Additionally, you can use the keyboard shortcut command to get to this and choose pick faces yourself, or you can use the wall command under architecture and still get to this command. The choice is yours in whatever workflow you want to use. We'll see our options bar appear just as any other time we are creating a wall. The one thing we really want to pay attention to this time around is our location line. For this particular example, we are going to use the finished face exterior, as I know I want to keep these specific bounds moving inward from my building. So under our properties, we want to ensure that we have our proper wall selected. So I will zoom in to the FormIt model, and if I hover over, you can see the green selection line is picking that almost a water table reference to place the wall. If we simply click in place, you can kind of now see an overlapping geometry of our FormIt model and the Revit model. As reference, FormIt will recognize if you have placed a dividing line, such as what you see right here between the two tan colors within Revit. This can be useful for water tables, splitting elements such as different materials in Revit, whatever you would like to use. So I'm just going to go through and as reference create some more walls for us so that we have some understanding of how our FormIt model transforms into a Revit model. All right, moving on to doors and windows. Unfortunately, doors and windows are a little tricky from going from FormIt to Revit, and that is because they are hosted elements, and FormIt does not understand hosted elements at this time. We must consider if the openings that we consider windows are true window elements or if they can be referenced as a curtain wall. If they are a true window element, such as this one that I have selected, we need to ensure that they have a proper host to live in, such as the wall that is extending up in the front facade. In this instance, we can easily place these in here and they will go and be hosted. Now you don't see these cutting through because the mass of the FormIt model is still behind our Revit geometry. If our openings are to be something of a curtain wall, like what you see here on the front facade, something of this scale is easiest to best quickly redraw and place your mullions where you would like to have them placed. So what you can do is go to level 1, do a wall, curtain wall 1, place it here. And of course, we need to ensure that our constraints are properly set. And if we go to our elevation, again, didn't make sure my masses were turned on. We can now see that our curtain wall is here. Let me turn this on consistent colors as it'll be a little bit easier to see. So we can bring this up. It automatically will snap kind of to those imported elements. And then we can come through and place our mullions on all of our grid lines. Create some additional grid lines that are directly splitting the curtain wall element. And then in this instance, it would just be easiest to simply copy and move from place to place. Sometimes, not always, Revit will recognize elements such as this square window. It will recognize the glass. So you can use a curtain wall to do a pick faces and it will highlight that interior portion of the glass. You then in turn would just then have to stretch the mullions to where you would see them fit. Unfortunately, this does not work on the larger elements because Revit reads all of the individual glass planes and then we'll try to create a curtain wall system within each one of those. And you'll end up with multiple mullions that would not be useful. That's why in this case, it is just simpler to redraw. When it comes to doors, they are, as we know, a hosted element. So you just have to you have to place them in as a typical door. There's no workaround like a curtain wall to place doors or anything of that sort. Moving forward with floors. Floors have a very specific workflow that begins with correct modeling techniques in FormIt. As I switch back to FormIt, and I turn on a section cut that I already have, and we zoom in, we can see this blue line that is indicating our levels that are in here. The bottom plane of your floor mass needs to be snapped to this blue line. That way, when you bring it into Revit, we can easily place floors. So I like to turn on a section box within a 3D view and kind of bring it back a little bit and cut that front facade off. I then can go to the massing and sites and floor, and I can do a select multiple. Now what you will want to do is hover over the bottom plane of that floor that you created, and you will see a mass floor family type, level 1 face. So if we select that one, and then we hover over level 2, you will see that the same thing appears, and you can click again to select another floor, and then the same with level 3. And in our properties palette, we wish to ensure that whatever floor we want to be created is what we have selected. After you have selected your items, you can go ahead and create the floor. The floor will be hosted, the top of that floor will be hosted to the bottom plane that you have selected. All right, if we turn our section box off, another item that we can use to create with our FormIt geometry is a roof. However, personally, I don't particularly like this workflow because if we select this mass that is representing our roof and we create our roof, I cannot come back in here and change the slope or edit the boundaries of a roof like you are typically able to within Revit. All you can do is drag with some stretch arrows in any of the directions you want. If this is exactly how you want your roof to look, then this will work perfectly for you. If you by chance want to possibly edit in the future, then you might just want to take that few extra moments and create a roof based upon your bounding walls. Okay, moving to the content items within FormIt that are transferred to Revit. They were very important in FormIt to make our categories correct. And the categories within FormIt we have are the mass, casework, entourage, furniture, generic models, parking, site, and specialty equipment. And while these categories certainly don't cover everything, Revit can be quite helpful in moving forward. If we select this table and chairs within our building, we can see that they are automatically already set to furniture, and that is because we chose that within FormIt. We are now able to come through and change it to another table that we would like. Let's pick this different conference table. So as you see, that is now changed to that other one. Unfortunately, it's hosted to the bottom of that floor, so you would need to move that back up. However, you can come through and any of the furniture that you would like, you can change to a different item, such as this that is happening, which can be very helpful if you have a generic chair and FormIt that you like to use, and then have a particular one that your client would like to see once you move to Revit. One of the things you can do if your particular category isn't allowed in FormIt is to categorize the FormIt geometry as something similar. In this case, I have created the shrubs and the trees on the site category. And what we can do to make these planting, as that is what other trees in Revit are considered, is to quickly edit the family And then under the family category and parameters, we can come down here and simply tell it that it is planting, hit OK, and load into project. And we're going to make sure it's the appropriate project, hit OK. And then I'm going to overwrite the existing version and its parameter values. And now when we see it is now to planting. So we can come down here and now we can choose any of the other planting options that we have. So just as Revit can read FormIt geometry, we can take SketchUp, bring it to FormIt, and then in turn to Revit. And in turn, we can take Revit content and put it to FormIt. Let's look at that now. So if we are in FormIt, I can open a SketchUp file, which we know is SKP. If we can open it, we see this geometry that is brought in. Probably not the exact colors that our client wants. So you would go ahead and change any of the materials that you would like. Under the visual styles, you want to identify any watertight issues, as watertight issues are the key when it comes from moving to FormIt to Revit. So if we then look back at the other table that I had created, I already had and went and edited the materials so that I could use this within my Revit model. So I just saved this file locally. Then I went to Revit. I created a new family type. And I imported the geometry just as I would in a Revit project, which is under Add-ins, and then import FormIt to Revit. Now, as a disclaimer, when you do bring in FormIt geometry to Revit, it will give you the circular dividing lines. That is just something that Revit does. I have not found a workaround, but if we're rendering this in shaded or consistent colors or realistic, that should not really be an issue for most people. We then can go and take this and load this into our project. And I already had it in there, so I want to overwrite the existing. And then we can go and place a component, and we now see that our table example is able to be placed within our model. So again, initially this was SketchUp geometry that I had found online. I liked the design of it. I brought it into FormIt, edited its materials, made sure it had no watertight issues, brought it into a Revit family, and then loaded it into the Revit project. If we were to move from Revit to FormIt, and that can be done with any of the items that are considered FormIt's categories, which are mass, casework, entourage, furniture, generic models, parking, site, and specialty equipment. We can take that and convert it. And that's actually what this table and chair is that you see inside. It was previously converted geometry. Now, how we would go about that. Under the add-ins on our FormIt converter, if we do a drop-down, we can convert the RFA to FormIt. It'll bring up a dialog box. And here is the path to the original Revit family files that you would like to use. I've already gone through this process with the site accessories, so I won't do all the steps. But you can browse to whatever folder those original files live in. And then you can browse to where you would want that new FormIt geometry to live. I have already done that with the site accessories. As you see, the original ones here, and then the AXM files live here.
Mariah,
Yes.
Would you say that it's important to have a permanent location where you're going to have your Revit families and also your FormIt families?
Yes, I would say that's very important. The one caveat I would say in that instance is possibly if you are using all of the default Revit geometry, as all of this geometry is automatically installed on any of the machines that Revit is installed on. But I would ensure that if you are converting that Revit geometry to FormIt, that you would have that living in one place, perhaps on a server that multiple users can have access to. And that way they know what has been converted already or what might need to be converted in the future for your use. When you do the conversion, the converter tool will give you a TXT file as the result. And it will tell you if anything was not supported, skipped, had a problem. I know Douglas and I previously worked on something and it would not convert for some reason. We actually never really figured out why. But it alerted us in this text that that particular family was not converted. And it will alert you if only one item out of an entire folder of say 10, 20, 30 items is not converted. So then we can go back to our FormIt, and under our content library, we can link to where that particular converted items live. In this case, I have placed the planters in the FormIt, area, as you see. I have in turn saved it locally. You can also save it to A360 if that is your preferred method. I then have come back to Revit and imported that FormIt geometry again with the import FormIt to Revit. Now, as we know, this was originally created from Revit, so we want to be able to bring that original file information back into it. And what we can do with this is we can reload families. Now, I do have to pass to the very original location of all this information, so bear with me while I do that. And as we know, it was site and then accessories. And if you see in the Revit background, we're on realistic right now. And it's just kind of white and gray boxes. And if we press OK, this is remapping to that original family that we converted. And it says the reload family succeeded. They are now replaced with the original Revit families. And as you can see, the materials also changed. So if we click on these, this now says the planter. If I would have clicked on it before, it would have said FormIt group and its specific number. So that is all I currently have. We're going to open it up to questions at this time. Please feel free to ask anything, or if I need to redo something to clarify, I will be happy to do that.
That was excellent, Mariah. I really liked the workflow that you were going through, especially walking us through on especially how to select a wall and place a wall, because it is extremely important when you import in your model and you're ready to place your walls in, that you have your walls going in the right location line. I also like the fact when you talked about the floor, when it comes to within FormIt, you have to select the bottom portion of it. Could you explain on that note what was happening before, just a little bit on it?
So what was happening before, and I'll use a section box to kind of reference this. Within FormIt, I was having the top plane of this mass floor snap to that location line of the floor within Revit. And unfortunately, it's a bug we found from Autodesk. It is a bug within the converter tool that it will not recognize if the top plane of your mass floor is snapped to that level. It will only recognize if the bottom plane is. So that's quite important to remember. But as soon as I spoke with Autodesk and they kind of helped me through that, we realized what the issue was. And it's a very simple workflow to remember. You just have to know to be able to do that.
Right. And here's the other key thing. I hope you all are listening. The key thing here is when we were using the software, we had a particular workflow in our own minds on what to do. And this is not necessarily just with Autodesk products, this is with any product. You may have a particular workflow and you would think that you would get the same result based off of your specific actions. Well, this was something that was like a hair-pulling type of situation because it's like, wait a minute, we know this works, so what are we doing wrong? And as soon as we found out exactly what we needed to do and also the backstory on it, it allowed the process to go a whole lot smoother. Just the same as when Mariah is talking about the watertight. FormIt is a solid masking type of a software. So these masks need to be a full solid, no watertight issues in order for the process to work very well when you're going from FormIt to Revit, as Mariah has already explained.
Yes, watertight issues we found on another model that we were using. They create a lot of issues. Even if something is just a single plane, FormIt to Revit does not like that, unfortunately. So everything must have some sort of thickness to it, even if it's something as small of 1/8 of an inch. But that's just something to really keep in mind. Everything needs a thickness, and it is ideal if you have something grouped. It makes it a lot easier when you bring it into Revit.
Right. So basically, from a FormIt standpoint, hopefully some of you were part of the first webinar. This is the second part of the webinar. The first part, Mariah went over a lot of the key features within FormIt. And she covered a very good presentation on that. If you missed it, I believe it is up on our website, so you can go back and look at that. Of course, this is the second part of it, so bringing it into Revit. But what I want to state here is, when you're in the conceptual aspect, the one thing which was key, one that she brought out in the first part of it, you want to have a good material library to kind of pick from. Because what's the point of have this conceptual design masking building, but you don't have materials to place in there? And you also want to have a good library of content. And when it comes to this content, as you see here on the screen, she got trees, she's already covered furniture. And then on the last one, we talked about your windows and doors. Those aren't hosted elements, as Mariah has already covered. There, you can create your library. So those windows and those doors, as we covered before, I made those. And if you really look at the key workflow, you can do this conceptual mass model, again, using materials, having your families from Revit, as well as the content that you make yourself, and location, okay, and levels. Bring this into Revit, and now you have, go to a floor plan view in Revit. And so from a floor plan view in Revit, as you see there, once you have your walls and windows, doors in there from the exterior, you can go ahead and start on the interior aspect of your building. Start putting in your interior walls, laying out rooms, and therefore that. So you really, as Mariah already indicated, you don't lose out on any of the work that you have done from a conceptual standpoint.
Yeah, there's not much. The only thing, I don't even want to say that you lose information is something in reference to something like a curtain wall. It's just a little bit of remodeling, but you already have the information behind that you can easily snap to and copy and rotate and paste over. So you can turn that over very quickly and really start to get to the construction document type of modeling of dimensions and all that not so fun stuff all the time.
Right. Another thing I like here is, and we haven't covered this, but when you bring in that model when you convert that file over from FormIt to Revit, you can have a template already ready and available with the masking on, certain aspects as you're needing to already set up for you. So that will even make the process go even quicker when it comes to moving that transition on. So in general, Mariah, would you say how much time would you think it'll take from a conceptual design and over into Revit to give it to someone to start doing interior fit out?
Maybe 30 minutes. If you have, if you understand the workflow that is supposed to be happening, such as the wall location line and rotating project north, if you have that stuff down and your wall types and things and your floor types are already created within the model, I'd say there's barely any time at all, half an hour, maybe an hour if you need to load something new in or create a new wall type that you don't have already living in your model.
Okay, that's good. Any questions?
I'm not seeing any coming through, so hopefully we either really confused you or we really explained some stuff.
I like the first part. I think we confused them.
Oh, I hope not.
All right, well, great. Well, if there aren't any questions, we're going to, if you wouldn't mind showing the email.
Yep, of course.
So again, this session is recorded. We will be preparing it and having it loaded up to our website. So at any point, if you wanted to look back through it, you will be able to do that. At any point you want to reach out to Mariah or myself, there is our email address there. We will be more than happy to answer any questions on this particular workflow. And thank you for listening in. For those who were able to connect up, I hope this was very beneficial to you.
Yes, thank you for attending.
All right. Have a good evening or good day.
Thank you.
Bye.